Okay, so today I wanted to talk about what I think is one of the most confusing trailers in the Nintendo Direct from this past week. Not because I think the trailer itself is confusing or that it's bad or anything, but the reaction I have seen to this Metroid Prime 4 Beyond trailer is confusing to me. I'm very confused because it seems like so many people are really unhappy with what Retro Studio showed. They're very unhappy with the open desert area and of course Viola, Samus's new motorcycle. And I'm sitting here thinking, wow, that was the best trailer for Metroid Prime 4 we've gotten yet. I've been waiting for a trailer of this caliber for this game to get me really excited. I've been waiting for that hook that makes Metroid Prime 4 different and evolved over the original trilogy, and we finally got that. And while I'm not going to sit here and say this trailer is perfect, I think they could still be doing more for this game's marketing. The reaction to the bike, specifically, the motorcycle Viola, has been so negative. This open desert area has been so negative. People are so against it, and I have my own reservations about it, but for the conversation, for what I've seen a lot of diehard Metroid Prime fans, for the conversation to go from, you know, I'm excited for this game, I have full, faith in Retro Studios, to go from that to this after seeing a few seconds of this open desert, I just think the entire thing is a little weird, to be honest. We haven't seen enough of it to get a full read on how much actual content is in the desert. I think we all just need to take a step back and wait and see how much there actually is to do there and see if it's actually fun. But that is what we are talking about today. We're talking about Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, its latest showing in this Nintendo Direct. Of course, if you are new here and you enjoy Metroid content, but also Nintendo Switch 2 coverage, I've been doing videos on every single game that Nintendo showed in the Direct. So definitely subscribe to the channel and like the video if you enjoy this type of content. I would appreciate it. Let's get into it. Alrighty, folks, welcome back to the channel. My name is Botox Games, and yes, we are talking about Prime 4 Beyond. I wanted to get this out sooner, but I didn't want to post too many videos yesterday. I did a video on Fire Emblem and the Galaxy remasters, so I figured first things first, today we'll talk about Prime 4 Beyond, and I think this is a really good trailer. I have been pretty critical of this game's marketing. I think the trailers they've shown, specifically the one back in March, have not been the greatest. They've been good at showing Metroid Prime fans like, hey, this is another Metroid Prime game. But that is in stark contrast to most Nintendo games and how they're marketed. Usually, and I mean, this is Miyamoto's whole philosophy, right? If there's not like a good new gameplay hook, a good new idea, they don't even make the game. And so far, what we've seen of Metroid Prime 4 Beyond up to this point has just been, yup, it's Metroid Prime 4, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It is the fourth entry in this series, but also Prime 2 has the Dark Ether, Prime 3 has all the different planets you can explore. We've been waiting to see what that new gimmick is for Prime 4 Beyond. I've been waiting to see what makes this game different, what separates it from games that were made almost 20 years ago, and the trailers up to now have not been doing that. I understand the reveal trailer, okay, it's like, yeah, you just gotta announce the game and show that it's a traditional Metroid Prime game, and I think that was a fine trailer to re-reveal the game with. But then the trailer we got back in March, I think, was actually pretty bad. Not saying the psychic abilities aren't interesting, but the way they showed them, the speed at which they showed them, it made it just feel very like, yup, Samus can open doors with her psychic abilities. It's like, okay, I mean, this will be fun, I know it will, but the way you're showing it isn't exciting. This trailer that we got this past week is the first time they have made Metroid Prime 4 Beyond look exciting beyond just the initial, like, oh, it's another Metroid Prime game. Now we have a reason for this game to exist. There is something actually genuinely unique about it, and that is Viola. That is this open desert area. So to see the reaction go so negative, I guess I shouldn't say it's that surprising because Metroid Prime fans, they just want another Prime game. But as someone who doesn't herald those games to quite the same degree as others, I personally prefer 2D Metroid to Metroid Prime. This is the trailer I've been waiting for to get me even more excited for this game, beyond just, once again, the premise of it being a new Metroid Prime game. They actually showed something substantial, something new here, and that is Viola, and that is this open desert area. So we'll go over the trailer here now. So it opens up with this really cool, I don't even know what this building is, this tower, and it's all raining, and like the tower itself is spiky, very cool. Samus goes in, she gets into her bike, she trons into it, you know, it looks really cool, and immediately I was like, oh, this is one of the coolest things I've ever seen. Samus on a motorcycle is awesome. Like, that is just cool imagery. Taking the actual gameplay and desert stuff away from it, the imagery of Samus on a motorcycle, on Viola, That just looks awesome. That is badass. That is exactly the kind of thing I want to see Samus doing in a new Metroid Prime game. And then they show her leaving this tower, and we get to see the open desert area that I know some people have been speculating would be in this game because it is in the key art. Well, shout out to them. They were completely right. There is some sort of open world aspect to this game. We don't know how big it is. There is a map in the top left, but it's more like a radar. It doesn't really give us an idea of how big this is. And I think this is where the real complaints are coming in, is that the desert is empty. But a lot of comments and replies that I've been getting have been misconstruing the desert as the bike. I can think the bike is really cool and still be reserved about the desert, and I am a little skeptical. I trust in Retro Studios, after working on this game for so many years, to not just shoehorn in this open world area if it's not fun, but I can understand being a little bit skeptical of this because of what they showed. What they showed of the desert, it does look pretty empty, but also the speed at which the bike moves, I feel like, is going to make these big open empty areas not really much of a factor when you're actually playing. There are a lot of points of interest if you actually look in the background and stuff that you can see, and based on how fast she moves on Viola, I don't think we're going to be spending that much time in empty area, if that makes sense. I think the best comparison for what this will end up feeling like when you're playing it is the Sea and Wind Waker. I think it's going to be quite a bit like that, where you have this desert hub, essentially. You get on Viola and you just, drive to different, more linear sections of the game. Some of these points of interest will be much smaller. Some of them will be much bigger. Some will be optional. Some will be required. I guess my question is, how linear is this game going to be? Will there be like a barrier somewhere that doesn't let you progress to a certain parts of the desert, or will it be completely open? I guess that is a concern, but I think having the vibes of like the Wind Waker Sea, but turned into a Metroid Prime thing where, the entire thing is isolation. You feel alone when you're exploring as Samus, both in 2D and in 3D. Now we have a huge desert for her to explore, and I think that feeling of isolation is only going to grow because of how big the desert is, because of how seemingly empty it is. But once again, I do think there are, enough interesting points of interest that you can see in the background. But hey, I could be wrong. Maybe this will be just a truly empty desert, and there's not that many interesting things to do in it, and it will be a miss for Metro Studios. I can understand being skeptical. I myself am a little skeptical based on what we saw, because really all they showed us in the desert was Samus doing some combat, and the combat looks cool. I do love the Akira slide being in there, but I think what would have really helped is if they showed maybe just a little bit more of this desert and showed Samus going to some of these smaller points of interest, because it ends when we see her going to another one of these big spiky towers, and that's really cool. I love like the little animation it plays when she gets in there and then she hops off the bike and it goes back to your traditional Metroid Prime gameplay. I think they should have shown her exploring some ruins or something, just something very small to give us a better idea, because you can see these points of interest when she's, fighting the enemies. You can see all the stuff on the map that we know is there, but I think it would have been good for them to actually show her getting a power-up or something from these ruins right here, for example. But yeah, for me, I'm happy this game has something that actually truly sets it apart from the other Prime games now, something that makes it unique, something that could not have been done on the GameCube or Wii, at least not in quite this same scale. I have seen a lot of criticisms of how the desert looks, because this is a Switch 1 game and it doesn't look quite as good as the other parts of the game, and I mean, I can agree with that. I don't know if this is necessarily a Switch 1 issue so much as it is, a desert gonna look a little iffy compared to these highly detailed linear corridors to begin with. I think it looks fine running on Switch 2 at least. We'll see how the Switch 1 version actually compares, but I don't know, man. I feel like people are being way too negative about this. I can understand being skeptical. I think you should be skeptical of basically any game you ever see before release. But even as someone who does not love Prime the way a lot of other people do, I trust in Retro Studios to have not shoehorned this in for the sake of just being like, okay, there's a big open world. I think when we actually get our hands on the controller and we get on Viola and we're taking down enemies in the desert and we're doing these side activities or whatever collectibles they have in the open areas, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm actually really looking forward to this aspect of the game. And this is coming from someone who played this back in April. I went hands-on with Prime 4, and it was the most impressed I was with any of the demos I played at that event in New York. And that was just the opening of the game that we saw them play on Treehouse, and I was like, oh, this looks incredible, running at 120 FPS. This is so much fun. A modern Metroid Prime game with mouse controls especially is going to be really awesome. we're still getting that core Metroid Prime experience in these linear sections, which I do think will be the majority of the game. We just have this desert to go in between them. And if you don't want to engage with the desert very much, I bet there will be a pretty linear path of like, okay, go from this point to this point, and that is your core story. You'll miss out on some missile upgrades or something that are in the ruins scattered around, but I don't think you'll have to engage with it too much if you don't want to. I mean, maybe this is even so segmented off from the rest of the game that really the only power-ups you're getting are for the bike. Maybe you get upgrades that increase your speed, maybe increase your attack damage, your Akira slide range, because when she does the Akira slide, you can see like a psychic, it's the same color, so it's like a psychic little bar showing, I think, how far the range is of the Akira slide in terms of like the area of effect. Maybe you'll be able to increase that range, stuff like that. Maybe those are the upgrades you're getting in the desert, but then the more corridor linear prime sections, that's where you get your on foot Samus upgrades. I don't know, man. The more I'm talking through it, the more I'm watching this footage, the desert I think is pretty exciting, and once again I'm just happy to have something different. But there is more to this trailer. That wasn't the only thing they showed. So after she leaves the desert section, she goes back to another one of these towers. It's like this cool magma cavern lava area. The lava looks really good. We do see a couple interesting things. So she goes next to this icy area with all of these, like, I don't even know what these are, these ice monsters, and in her UI you can see, I believe that's the plasma beam, right? So plasma beam should be back. I think some people were saying flame beam, but I'm pretty sure that's the plasma beam. I could be wrong, but that's really cool. We see her use her grapple hook, her psychic grapple hook. It's not a tangible thing anymore. It seems to be psychic anyway, based on the color, if I had to guess. So that's really nice. We see some morph ball action in this like rainy area, and that looks really pretty. All the environments, all the interiors of this game just look so cool. The design work that went into like the architecture is really nice. We see Silex for a little bit. He's floating. Samus is confronting him. So that's presumably right before a boss fight, or maybe he's gonna run away and send some other enemy out to fight you. And then we get our release date. So it wasn't like a super long trailer or anything, but I think where we are in the game's release cycle, you know, we're 3 months out from release. We'll talk about that December 4th release date in just a second. This is good. We got our hook, which is the desert and the bike. Now leading up to release, hopefully starting, I would say, mid-October, late October, we start getting more concrete updates pretty much every week, maybe leading up to some sort of Metroid Prime 4 Direct, maybe just a bigger overview trailer. Metroid Dread's marketing was really good up until they overstepped their boundaries and showed a little too much right before release, but the Dread reports were so awesome for that game. I hope we can get something like that again for Prime 4 Beyond that doesn't spoil the game, and then doesn't spoil, you know, any like crazy boss encounters or something. Metroid Prime is a hard game to show, and that's why I think the marketing has been weird, because I think they really are trying not to spoil those really exciting, really cinematic moments, those really cool boss fights. I think they're trying to avoid spoiling that, especially after the reaction to Dread's marketing and what happened with Kraid. I think they want to avoid that entire thing again, so maybe that's why they're being a little bit more hush-hush with the marketing for this game. But December 4th, 2025, that is our release date, later than I expected. I was predicting an October release date. It's funny, I had like a lot of the slots right in terms of like what days Nintendo would release games, but I was just wrong about which games were in which lots, because I think I said in my predictions video October 2nd for Prime 4, and well, that's when Mario Galaxy is releasing, and then November 6th, I was right on the money for Hyrule Warriors. So December 4th, that does mean it unfortunately is missing Game Awards, which I don't know if this game would have been nominated given how competitive 2025 is. There's a lot of like really strong Game of the Year contenders. A nomination certainly would have been in talks. I don't know if it would have won, but it would have been nice just to have this game out beforehand for the conversation, because while I don't think Nintendo's expecting this game to blow up and become the huge, you know, sales-breaking moment for the Metroid Prime series, those conversations are important in my opinion for the wider gaming audience to get their eyes on the franchise. So even if it wasn't nominated, having that November talk of, oh, is Metroid Prime 4 Beyond going to be nominated for Game of the Year, I think would have helped this game in terms of the name just being spread around all of these gaming forums and Reddit and everything. So I don't know, maybe it doesn't matter too much, but it would have been nice to have this out so we could at least be in the conversation for Game of the Year. And then we have the amiibo. So we have 3 amiibo. We have Samus, just kind of a really boring Samus amiibo, I gotta be honest, as well as Samus and Viola, where she's on this bike. I love that the base of it is just the regular size of a amiibo base, and then the bike is like extended over it. That's really funny. That one's $40. Samus is 30, the standard one. And then there's also Sylux. What's weird is the 2 different Samus amiibo are releasing on November 6th alongside Hyrule Warriors, and then Silux is releasing with Metroid Prime 4 itself on December 4th. I don't know why they're doing that. That's really weird, to be honest, but I do like these amiibo. I'm glad we're getting more amiibo. I wish they would reprint the squishy Metroid from Samus Returns, because I did not buy that. I'm a dummy, and I have regretted it ever since. So happy we're getting more amiibo. It does say the journey to launch begins. They also show that piggyback visual retrospective releasing in October. I hope this is kind of a tease for more, like the journey to launch. We're going to start promoting even more. I think in this context, they're just talking about the art book and the 2 amiibo releasing in November, but hopefully there's more to it. I don't know if this game needs a full, 20-minute Nintendo Direct, but even just like a 7-minute overview trailer or something that compiles all of the information we've seen, all with Switch 2 footage, that gives us a little bit more to chew on. I think we need that. Maybe 2 more trailers, to be honest. Not necessarily revealing crazy things, but just showing a little bit more, showing some cool new abilities. I think we should see before release. But let me know your thoughts on Prime 4 Beyond in the comments down below. This will be my, 4th video in a row where I'm going against the grain and being positive, because everybody is negative about everything that was in that Nintendo Direct. My Mario Galaxy video, people are like, oh no, Galaxy 2 is overpriced. My Fire Emblem video, people are like, oh, they should have closed on Fire Emblem. This is a niche game. And I'm just sitting here like, please guys, come on, let's be happy. Let's be a little bit more cheerful. We just got to see so many cool games. Yes, there are things to nitpick, but like, must we linger on these things so long? I don't know. But yeah, let me know your thoughts down below. Of course, subscribe here for more Prime and Nintendo Switch 2 coverage. Follow me on Twitter at BoTalksGames. And until next time, folks, peace.